Are we back in the 20s or something now? I mean, we are in the 20s, aren't we?
I guess kind of, yeah.
I mean, this is the roaring 20s.
Yeah, it really is.
What am I drinking here? Is this a Gin Ricky? I mean,
No, it's a Pink Whitney.
a Pink House close.
I didn't realize that's like sponsored by Barstool Sports. Huh. So essentially, it is pink lemonade vodka, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a little sweet by itself, but
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyways, not after show talk, but
yeah, that's next.
Dude, it's been a couple of weeks.
It feels it, that's for sure. We've been busy, both of us have the last couple of weeks. Jeez.
Well, I mean, we had a pretty big automotive thing in the middle of it, and I was thinking maybe we could talk about some of that on this episode.
I'm for it. Yeah, that was awesome.
It's time to hit the trail. Lock in those hubs and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange. They're here to talk about 4x4s and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
All right, so for the last couple episodes, we had mentioned that, briefly, we didn't really get into it very much, but we mentioned that we were going to do a derby car.
Yes.
I guess we did that, or the way we described it was maybe a little bit inaccurate.
Oh, so?
Well,
aside from the fact that I sadly was never able to get over here to help, and I still feel bad about that. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. We didn't build a demolition derby car.
No, it was a bump and run.
We did
talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, we built a bump and run, which I didn't even really fully know what a bump and run was.
Oh.
Bump and run, for those of you who don't know what it is, if you're like me and I've been living on a rock for the last 42 years for some reason, bump and run is essentially dirt track racing, very short oval track.
Front wheel drive cars.
Not always. They do have rear wheel drive bump and runs, but this particular class.
So that's new. The rear wheel drive is new. When bump and run first started, it was front wheel drive only.
Well,
so
no.
Rear wheel drive is new.
Bump and run racing is really what the roots of NASCAR were and all that back in the day.
Yeah, they classified that dirt track.
Well, yeah, and dirt track racing,
yeah.
and that's what this kind of is. A lot of it is, because I did some research the other day, and I might be doing a history piece article for the Thumbprint.
Nice.
Bump and run racing was brought around, like you said, it really is starting to go on mainstream in the last 15 or 20 years. Yeah. And yes, a lot of it is front-wheel drive cars. But the idea was to bring back some of the early oval track, dirt track, kind of NASCAR stock car kind of racing.
Yeah.
And the bump and run classes, in a lot of these, now we went with USA Demolition Derby. They were the ones that put on Elginak's first, hopefully annual bump and run.
Okay.
And their rules, they had two different classes for it. They had your stock class and your modified class. So we built a quote-unquote stock car for this. And we had said on the show that we were going to build it out of a Dale Earnhardt edition Monte Carlo. You even said we needed to keep the trunk lid and stuff like that. Yeah. That didn't happen. The Monte Carlo ended up being...
Yeah, what happened about that? I know we talked about it, but I don't remember.
Well, I went down to go pick up the Monte Carlo, and he pretty much was going to have it ready for me. And it was basically leaking all fluids. And he just... I mean, trans... oil, like everything was blown out. Thing probably was in a... either just not maintained at all, or maybe it was just run really hard.
Gotcha.
It looked like something that might have come from like a drug auction or something.
Oh, fantastic.
And so I'm thinking that...
Should have bought it and checked the door panels, man. You could have made bank on that.
That's happened before to me. So we ended up, and I got talking to Charbel down there at EMC, or EMH. I'm just going to call him Charbel. He's our... If anybody's interested in buying BMW parts, import parts, mainly BMW, he's a BMW guy here in Moraine City, Michigan. He bought the old Total Recall junkyard, which was closed for a number of years, and he's completely transformed the place into an awesome yard. Have you been down there yet, by the way?
No.
Now, he specializes in BMWs, but he is getting American cars in there. He's getting all sorts of other...
Where was this again?
On King Road in Moraine City, Michigan. And he...
Interesting.
It's only a couple acre yard, about 4 acres. I actually almost bought the yard a number of years ago through
talking about
Thin
that.
Line Off Road.
Yeah.
The deal fell through. Charbel Haddad, he ended up buying the yard probably, I'd say, maybe a year later. And he has just done a fantastic job. Now, him and his brother, they're either from Lebanon or Iran. And Charbel and Jimmy Haddad. Now, Charbel owns the place. Jimmy works for him as well.
Nice.
And I tell you what, these guys are, and people kind of roll their eyes sometimes when you talk in the automotive world, with people from the Middle East or whatever coming. These guys are as pure blood as American as you can get. Charbel's been over here 15 or 20 years.
Nice.
And is a hardcore car guy.
Awesome.
He brought his brother Jimmy over here about 3 or 4 years ago. Jimmy fell in love with the area, fell in love with being over here. COVID hit. He was stuck here. As soon as he was able to, he brought his wife and kids over here, and he sold everything he had over there. He brought out. They moved over here, and now they're
welcome.
Jimmy's more into the supercar type stuff. He's doing some crazy ZL1 Camaros. He's doing. He just has a BMW, one of the rear engine BMW supercars.
Nice.
These guys, crazy stuff. In this little town, Rain City, Michigan,
Nice.
But anyways, so they specialize in BMWs, but they do other stuff as well. And I said to Charbel, I said, hey, man, Charbel's a really cool dude. And I go, hey, need this bump and run car. So we had made this deal for $400 for a car. And it was going to be on the Monte Carlo that he had out front in the yard. And that didn't work out. And he's like, well, just walk through the yard, see if there's anything. And so he's like, I don't think I've got anything. He goes, but I got some more cars coming in next week and whatnot. And he's like, and by the way, Charbel, perfect English and all that,
Nice.
And he's like, just, walk through the yard. So we're walking around, we're talking, and, I didn't see anything. And then I just happened to see this Dodge Stratus sitting over there that, like a nice looking commuter car sitting there. And I'm like, well, what's the story on the Stratus? And he goes, oh, I totally forgot about that. It came in the other day. It's got a dead battery, but it'll run if we start it. He goes, give me 400, it's yours. Cool. And so I drove the Stratus. We jumped it, and I drove the Stratus home. Ice cold AC. It's got a $250 stereo system in it.
Nice.
Maybe more than that. Kenwood big amp behind the seat and all that. Preston
Nice.
ended up pulling all that out for his. And we spent the last couple of weeks gutting this Stratus and getting this thing ready for the show, or for the race. And, of course, the first thing we had to do, by USA Demo Derby's rules, we had to remove all the interior that was flammable. We had to remove, you could leave certain pieces. You could leave the door panel on the driver's side and stuff. We ended up removing it, but then we screwed a floor mat to it just for...
that works, little padding.
Yeah, a little padding.
Yeah.
Welded the door shut, welded a 4-point cage in it.
Nice.
You could go as crazy as you want for the cage on the inside. I actually used DOM roll bar tubing and bent and welded up a roll cage for it. Welded the door shut, like I said. We had to take all the glass out. Folks, if you haven't gone to our Wheelin' Facebook page yet, you need to see the experiment that we did. Oh, come on. You saw the video.
Yeah.
So
that took me a second. That was awesome.
in the movies... You'll see the guys, like in shoot 'em up movies, and they're in like car races and stuff. You see people like kick out the windshield. Now, if you're talking an old car from the 40s, 50s, 60s that has a rubber sealed windshield, you can do that if you kick it hard enough. It will pop out. It'll break, but it'll pop out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, modern cars are all glued in. And they're still doing this in the movies. They'll be going down the road in a, 2000 whatever, and they kick out the windshield. Now, mind you, I didn't believe that you could kick one out. In fact, I have a windshield cutter, and I have a windshield cutting tool, and the glue is so stiff on this Stratus, I could not get it to cut. So, ended up taking, and I did an experiment. I took a piece of wood, put it across the top of the dashboard, took the airbags out, put them upside down against the glass, and ran some wires out and blew the airbags to try to blow the windshield out with shotgun force. It didn't work. It broke the windshield.
I did see that, yeah.
So first try, we had no protective covering.
Gotcha.
And we sent glass flying 30 feet over my driveway onto the excursion, all over the place. We had to pick it out of the driveway.
I popped a window once trying to remove it to, salvage it and sell it. And I was prying on the seal. I didn't know anything at the time. Yeah, I kind of made the window go pop. It exploded glass.
Windshield or
all
side
over.
window?
Rear quarter panel window on a Grand Cherokee.
Yeah, see, those will shatter
exploded.
into beads.
Yeah, it did that. And I was made to use the shop vac and vacuum up all the glass that ended up on the ground.
Ooh.
Yeah, my mom was not happy.
Yeah. Of course,
Pretty sure I got it all.
I own this place, but I was out in the driveway, which is gravel.
Yeah.
I was out there for half a day with a broom sweeping the gravel driveway to get all the glass.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So that second try is the one we videoed, and you can see that on on our Facebook page if you go on there. It's the only place I uploaded it to. My brother Brett happened to be over helping that day because he sponsored, and I'll get more to that in a second. But so we took the second airbag we had, which I think was the I want to say it was the steering wheel airbag, and we turned it upside down, and we put some plastic painter tarp over the windshield.
Nice.
Hit it, and it buckled out the windshield, but it did not remove it from the frame. In the long run, I ended up having to use, because the glue was so hard on this windshield, and my cutting tool wouldn't even touch it. And even if I heated the cutting tool, which is an old trick, you heat it up with a torch.
Yeah, so
would
just
not
torch the glass.
It would not do it. I ended up going in the back of my truck and grabbing one of my jackhammers from work, and I jackhammered out. It was a small one.
That's awesome.
Well, not really a jackhammer, a hammer drill with a paddle bed on it.
Ooh, those are fun.
And I ended up going all the way around the edge, and it took me probably about 15 minutes for the front and 15 minutes for the rear. But I did get them out. But anyways, so got all the glass out. We had to use hood pins. We had to have four points for the hood. I didn't go buy hood pins. I took a couple of large bolts, welded them upside down, put the nuts on there. That counts. I went online and I was reading about a bunch of stuff with demo derbies, and people were saying, hey, if you're running a car and you want to not have it go into limp mode, if it's got a computer controlled car, you take the temp sensor out, plug the hole for the temp sensor, and then you end up putting just hanging the temp sensor on the outside of the engine, and that way the engine can run as hot as it needs if you blow the radiator out or whatever.
Nice.
So I ended up doing...
That's a good trick. I gotta remember that.
I did not take... Well, first I was like, well, I could just probably twist the wires together, and it would do the same thing. No, it didn't. I did all sorts of experiments. Could not get... It needs the temp sensor. It needs a certain amount of amperage.
Gotcha.
So I could not get the temp sensor out of the block on the Stratus. And the Stratus has got the 2.4 dual overhead cam engine, which is the same one that some of the KOH, King of Hammers rock buggies are running, because you can run them like 7,000 RPM for like a half an hour straight without blowing them. They don't have a lot of torque. They don't have a lot of torque. They're just a high rev, and they're kind of built like They're kind of built like a if you look at them, they look a lot like a VTEC Honda engine, like some of those the Japanese race car engines and stuff like that. So. But they just, and you can run, I think it has an 8,000 RPM tachometer in it. And so anyway, so I did that. I ended up buying another temp sensor because I couldn't get the one out of the block. Just left the other one, hung it over the block. It was like $16, something like that.
Oh, that's nothing.
You got to flush all the antifreeze out, put just straight water in it, did that. And then you got to remove all the tail lights, bumpers, stuff like that. You're allowed to stuff and plate the bumpers within reason.
Yeah.
And then the only thing I did run into a little bit of a problem with is I called up the event promoter and I said, hey, my radiator on this car, once I removed the stock bumper, is hanging in front of the core support, just down in the middle. It's like right there. Like if you're in a stock Dodge Stratus and you hit a rabbit in the road, you could probably take out the bottom of your radiator. I mean, it's a very crappy design.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, you can weld up tubing around it. He goes, you can't go above the stock bumper. You can weld up tubing or whatever around it to protect it. So me overkilling everything as I typically do.
Naturally. I'm the same way. You've seen some of what I build.
I took 1/4-inch diamond plate, and I actually basically built a aerodynamic style, like almost like you get an ARB front bumper for a Jeep or whatever. I basically built a lower half bumper that completely went around. I bent it around, heated it with the torch, plasma cut
Man, you got
edges.
fancy.
Oh, I did. It only took me about 2 hours, but I made this crazy cool shield for the bottom.
Nice.
Went to go check in. That was the only thing. Went to go check in the car. The guys come out, the demo derby officials, and they go, yeah, no, if you're not running in the mod class, if you're running the stock class, you can't run that. And I'm like, and it's welded. I mean, I've got, I probably used half a spool of wire on this car, okay?
Crap.
And I'm like, man, he goes, tell you what, he goes, cut a big window in the front of it. He says, you can leave the sides and the bottom of it for the protection, but you need to have something in the front of it. And I says, okay. So I ended up cutting, first we borrowed a cordless Metabo, did not work. It didn't have the power.
Yeah.
Then we took my Metabo, borrowed a generator. The generator kept tripping the breaker on it.
Huh.
So finally we plugged into the overhead light generator for the event and took the Metabo from the back of my truck, and we ended up, side grinder, Metabo's a name brand, but we ended up
best name brand of them as far as I'm concerned.
We ended up cutting about a 4-inch by about maybe 25-inch piece out of it, and they were happy with that.
Oh, that's cool.
Now the only other, and then we cut the exhaust off it so the car was loud, and then we, like I say, headlights, taillights, anything breakable, door handles had to go. The only other, and then we welded you're allowed to plate the door. We already had the cage going in front of the door. We did do an A pillar to B pillar brace on that as well. So technically we had a 5-point cage because we had the 4-point, behind the driver to the back, and then we did an extra brace across, which was allowable.
Nice.
But you're allowed to do whatever you want to the driver door to protect the driver. So being that my 17-year-old son Preston was going to drive the car, I plated the entire outside of the door, welded it from the fender to the rear door. Nice. It's a 4-door car with 1/4-inch diamond plate.
Nice.
And so I figured, and I welded.
You built a tank, is what you're saying.
Well, what was funny about that is because I said to the event promoter over the phone, because I called him probably half a dozen times. And his name's Jack, by the way. Shout out to Jack. I forgot. I think it's like Fissler or something like that. But anyways, USA Demo Derbies, great guy. Anyways, I called him, like I said, half a dozen times, and every single time he's like, no, it's cool. Whatever questions you got, any time of the day, he was great,
Nice.
And so I said to him, I go, this is what I want to do. I says, it says something about the plate. And he's like, yeah, you can do that. And he goes, well, you're probably going to want to bolt it. And I go, well, why is that? He goes, well, welding 1/4-inch to sheet metal is pretty much impossible. And I'm like, well, okay.
You know how to use a welder. It's not.
Well, after seeing the quality of some of the cars at the event, which you saw too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I welded it all up. It looked awesome. Then my ace in the hole for the last trick with the car was I was looking online and I double stuffed the tires.
Nice.
And a lot of people are probably going, what? You did what?
That was my reaction when we first talked about it. I'd never heard about it.
I had never heard about this. I'm watching some YouTube videos. I'd love to do a shout out. I don't remember the YouTube guy's name, but maybe we'll do it in the future if we do another demo derby thing or whatever. He had a couple of videos that were really helpful. And one of his, how-to videos, he was double stuffing tires. Now, I guess typically a lot of these mod cars, what they'll do is they will take an old tire, say you're running a 15-inch rim. They will take and put whatever 15-inch tire they're putting on. And by the way, you can only run up to a snow tire. You cannot run mud tires on these things. And then they'll take another 15-inch tire and they will cut the sidewall out. They will mount it onto the rim as a double sidewall, as basically a rubber flap as a sidewall protector. And then they'll run tubes in the tires, of course, because that was not going to seal,
So they cut the tread off, and they
cut
use the sidewalls?
They only use the sidewall piece.
Okay, all right, that makes more sense.
So basically, they make a skirt for the outside edge. And I was like thinking about doing that. Mm-hmm. But then I saw this video about double stuffing, and the couple of videos were saying, so if you're running P-metric tires, let's say you're running, well, I'll just use my exact numbers. Yeah. The car already had 205 tires on it.
Okay.
And they say go up 10 millimeters. So I happen to be down. Shout out again to Charbel and the guys over at the Yard and King Road there. I went in the back and Jimmy Charbel actually, congratulations, by the way, to him and his wife. They just had a little baby.
Oh, yeah, congratulations.
And they were still at the hospital. Jimmy was running the deal that day. I went in and talked to Jimmy and I go, hey, Jimmy, I just looking for some 15-inch tires I can cut up, whatever, for some sidewall protectors. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but go ahead and look in the tire pile. So I went back there and I found a set of 215s.
Okay.
So I grabbed the 215s. He's like, yep, just take them, whatever. Didn't charge me anything.
Nice.
Took them home. I took the 205s off the car. I got some steel rims from Bud's Garage, another sponsor. They gave us the wheels for the car.
Awesome.
Steel wheels, because it had these really delicate aluminum wheels, aftermarket aluminum wheels on it when we got the car.
About $100 for scrap on those right now.
Part of the deal is I had to give those back, which I did. But
it works.
The Bud's Garage in Elginak gave me the steel wheels.
Nice.
And so I took the steel wheels, mounted the 205, or I took the 205 tires, dismounted them. Then I took the 205s and used every bit of my strength over about 3 hours one day and about an hour the next day to stuff them inside of the 215s. Fold up these tires. Like
I imagine that was as difficult as putting that run flat in the Hummer wheel I did a couple years ago.
Far worse.
Worse?
Far
Oh,
worse.
my God.
So
how did you do it by yourself?
First I tried ratchet straps.
That's a very serious question because it took 2 people my size and 3 other people, 2 3-foot pry bars, and half a can of liquid wrench to get that thing into that tire.
We've talked about that before. I do those myself with a cherry picker.
All right, I did see that in the YouTube video, but we didn't have one of those. So, okay.
Yeah, and the old Marine, for the run flats, the old Marine story, which we've talked about forever ago, one of the old manuals literally says to take like 6 Marines to physically pull them in.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Me and the other guy make up about 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So,
plus 3 other guys. So we had 7. Yeah.
well, no, and mind you, I did this pretty much one-armed.
Jeez.
And we can talk about that in a minute.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. We haven't told them about that.
We have not.
Yeah.
But, so I'm out there, and I first ratchet strapping did not work. So eventually I just took them, and it was just brute force. I would push down on the tires. I mean, we're only talking 15-inch tires, car tires. I'd get them to kind of fold, get them into the center of it, and then it was literally just kind of walk them in, push them in, get my weight, get my knees, get my elbows, just push, push, push.
Jeez.
And then on a couple of them, I did take a crowbar and kind of pry back. And once you got them inside the bead, they'd pop back into shape.
Yeah, nice.
I would never do this if I did not have a tire machine.
Yeah.
Mounting them on the rims, 2 tires at once onto a steel rim. My tire machine, which will mount, as we've done before, up to a 40-inch tire, was every bit of its force to take a double-stuffed 15-inch 205 car tire. Well, 215 now at this point, but onto those rims. Got them on, had to soap the heck out of them, got them on. I put tractor inner tube tires.
Nice.
I got from Tractor Supply. Real thick ones. They had the thick ones that they say they're also for automotive use, but they're super thick. They're like tractor ones. So I had inner tubes and then a tire inside a tire. So technically this car had 8 tires.
Jesus.
But, and we'll get to the race part of it in a minute.
Now, please tell me you took it to just some like Bell tire and asked them to balance those, because that would have been awesome.
I did not. I
kind of want to do that.
Yeah. Can you? Well, even better. I think. What if you took them to somewhere and said, "I need to get my tires replaced," and they went to a dismount and they're like, "You have a tire inside of your tire. Like, what's going on here?"
That would be awesome.
And
so then they're going to try and charge you disposal for 8 tires.
Yeah, that's true.
I just ask for them back.
So then I pumped them up to 60 psi, I think, something like that.
Nice.
And so each wheel and tire combo, which is a little tiny 215 car tire at this point, weighed like 40 pounds.
That is awesome.
So I ended up putting them on the car, and so if you end up, destroying your outer tire, your inner tire is still there, then the inner tube's still there, and blah blah.
Nice.
And well, I guess I'll just say, Preston, when he went into the race, and I'm going to let you talk some more when we get to talk about the race part, but as you know, and we can talk about where he placed in a minute, but his car was one of the only cars in his heat that drove off the track with all 4 tires and no mechanical issues. Yeah. Everybody else, there was a lot of tire blowouts in his heat. Oh, yeah. A lot of blowouts.
And the whole thing, and that's...
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of races over the years. Dirt track figure 8s, demo derbies. My favorites are still figure 8s. And there was some, what was it, Michigan or national championship they did in Armada a few years ago. Seen a lot of races. This, hands down, I think is one of the best ones I've ever seen. They had an insane amount of cars. And normally, I'm not normally a bump and run fan.
Over 80 cars.
Yeah. I mean, they had, 8 heats of stock cars, 8 heats of modified, A and B features for each of those classes. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, they had the little demo derby thing, which was, I'm not going to lie, disappointment, but that's beside the point.
Yeah.
The bump and run, which is what the whole thing was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what, 2 or 3 times at cars that were upside down that flipped?
Yeah, we had flips, we had fires, we had...
That was impressive.
And you know what's really impressive, though, is with all that action, not a single injury.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, it was run really, really well.
Run excellent.
Everybody, there were a couple people that were upset, we'll say, with some of the other people, which, I mean, you get that in this kind of stuff. But, you know...
Well, it was the first year.
Yeah. And it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, one of the best ones I've ever seen. And Preston did phenomenal.
I thought so.
I mean, I've seen a lot of... You could see his hesitation in the beginning. And once he kind of settled into a little bit, then he started driving and just, wow, he did good. Well, he did really well.
So, back to the car build, which we're almost finished of.
Yeah.
We got all that stuff done in the car, and we were down to the brass tacks. I mean, we were still working on this car up to 9 o'clock the night before the event. And so we painted the car. My brother... So I want to talk about the sponsor end of it. Foxfire Fixin's my family restaurant. That's the whole reason we did this. My brother got a hold of me, and my brother is part of the Algonac Lions. And one of the Algonac Lions, Jake Scarbeck, he is the one that kind of wanted to bring this event to Algonac. So it was kind of like a Lions thing along with some other... I'm not fully understanding how it all came together, so I'm not going to speak very intelligently on that. But anyways, it was Jake Scarbeck with the Lions. They brought the whole thing. My brother ran the beer tent right there at the event, which was right next to the track, which was awesome because you could be at the beer tent, you could watch the event.
Yeah, a lot of times they have a stand set up right in there, which is cool.
A lot of times you have events like that. The beer tent's way off on the other side. You can't see what's going on, so it was right there at the track, which was really cool. So my brother ran that. My brother, though, owns and runs Foxfire Fixin's restaurant, and he really wanted to have a car in it because he basically had skin in the game for this whole thing. And so my brother said to me, I want the car to look like a vintage stock car.
Okay.
And so we hand lettered it up. We did all these, our meats are smoking and, down home country cooking. And then we put Preston Codet, his name along the A pillar. And then
I still love the logo you guys use, or the icon for his number.
Oh, for the roof. Yeah. So in these derbies, you have to have what they call a fin for the roof. Yeah. You have to have... They don't give you a size, but it's basically a large enough piece of metal or wood that is permanently attached to the roof that has the car number on it. And you can pick your own car number. He picked 87. I don't know what the significance is in that, but he just wanted 87. But we did the Fred Flintstone ribs.
I love it.
Big old ribs, plasma cut out a piece of sheet metal, bolted it to the roof of the car.
That is awesome.
Hand painted it. Hand painted everything else on the car except for the Foxfire logos, which were decals. And the decal on the passenger side held up pretty good. The one on the driver's side, which was over the diamond plate, kept peeling. So if we run the car again, when we run the car again, we'll probably hand paint that.
Yeah.
Speaking of the hand painting, shout out to Julianne, friend of mine. She came over one night and helped paint a bunch of stuff on the car.
Nice.
Did a bunch of great stuff on it. So, we got this car ready. We got her loaded up. Borrowed a trailer from our mutual friend Jason and Amber Steinmetz.
Nice.
Borrowed their trailer because my trailer's loaded up with stuff. And he's like, yeah. And my winch isn't working on the trailer right now.
Gotcha.
Didn't know if I was going to have to winch up this wreck when I was done.
Oh, have faith, man. Come on.
Well, So, did all that. And then, like I said, Bud's Garage was a sponsor with the tires. We happened to be at Foxfire one day talking about the car. And Simon Monahan Realtor. Oh, man, I really wish I could remember his name right now. It's on the back of the car. Anyways, a gentleman from Simon Monahan Realtor here locally said, hey, you're doing a derby car? And we said, yeah. And he goes, here's $50. Here's my card. Put a bumper sticker size sign on the car. So we ended up painting up the trunk lid, or the back of the trunk lid, with Simon Monahan, put his name on it.
Very cool.
And then the very last one, literally as I'm loading up the car, Friday night before the Saturday race, mutual friend Bob Blanchard shows up, and he's like, hey, can I help you with anything? I'm like, dude, I'm just finishing up, but here, have a beer, whatever, we're talking for a minute. So he reaches into his pocket, pulls out $100, and he goes, this is for my family. We're helping sponsor it. And
awesome.
Brett basically bought the car, and then all this and that. So I had a lot of sweat equity in the car.
Yeah.
But I didn't have money into the car as much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Bob, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, seriously. He goes, we really support what you guys are doing. So we ended up,
That's awesome.
We ended up stickering up the top of the trunk lid, the Blanchard family farm, because
That's awesome.
Bob's got that 100-acre farm that surrounds Foxfire Restaurant. So,
Nice.
So those were our sponsors. So we had this thing loaded up, and then,
Very nice.
of course, we go down to the event Saturday morning. And like I told you, the only thing we had to modify was cut the hole in it.
Yeah.
Figured out how all the heats. Preston drew. You had to do so he was in heat number 3 for the stock class.
I think it was 4.
Was it 4?
4 or 5.
Okay, it might have been 4 or 5, yeah. At 5, I think you're right. I think it was 5. I think originally they said they were signing us up for 3, but then they had to bump it up because they had so many people show up.
Yeah.
And so he was in 5. And then, so they did 8 cars per heat. Mm-hmm. And they put down poker chips that had numbers on them upside down. They had him draw a spot. So his pole position was 7. So he drew a low pole position.
Yeah.
Which is fine, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And so in his heat, do you remember what he came out in?
The position?
Yeah.
I do. I think I'm going to let you tell him.
Well, go ahead. Or you talk.
Took 5th.
He took 5th. Very good, yeah.
Just barely lost out to 4th, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was bumper.
Less than half a lap, I think it was.
Well, all right, so John.
Which is a bummer, because I thought I remember him lapping that guy.
So I've been talking a lot about it, and because I was basically doing a Facebook Live, which is basically, that's on my personal Facebook, but it's a public post.
Yeah.
So if you go to Keith Codette Facebook, you can see the race.
I forgot I took a video of that, too.
I think I cross-shared it to Wheelan, but I was more like videoing it and kind of just very quietly cheering him on. Give me your impression of the race. What'd you think?
So, like I said, I mean, I covered a little bit of it. He did very, very well. He saw some hesitation in the beginning, and then he just kind of figured you got to just dive right in and push through some of those turns. And I got a video. They had to stop it at one point. There was a big pile up.
Twice.
Yeah. I actually kept recording most of that. So I think I got the whole race. And the stoppage, so it's a pretty long video.
Yeah.
That's why I forgot to send it.
Same
I'm
here.
sorry.
No, I got it too, but yeah, your angle would be different.
Excuse me. Yeah, so I was done at the far turn, one of the far turns. And yeah, there were some great hits.
Technically, you would be from the starting point, you'd be at turn 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. I don't.
Well, they started at the stage.
Oh.
Turn 1 would be by the beer tent. Turn 2 would be back
by the stage.
Before
so it'd be turn 1.
Turn
then,
1, yeah.
And I think you were by turn 2.
I was
then,
at turn 2,
subsequently,
yeah, exactly.
So I unfortunately, I was in a terrible angle for video. Because once I got much, I'm watching in front of me with my camera or phone, turn it just a little bit to the left to get the rest of that side washed out from the sunlight.
Oh, yeah.
But I got most of the rest of it. And I mean, I'd have to look back on it, but I know he did really well. So especially for a first-time racer, he did fantastic. And, he knew when to kind of hold up, when to hold back, let the people in front of him clear themselves. In a race like that style of racing, you're just adding to the problem if you try to shove your way through and no one can get through.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because there was a bunch of people. Preston was right at the back of the pileup.
Yeah.
Both times, actually.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people next to me were screaming, bash him, this and that. Mm-hmm. And, it would have done nothing.
No. And that's what a lot of people don't realize.
I think the first time he ripped a rim off the car, didn't he?
Something like that.
I think he was three-wheeled because
two stoppages. I think
they dragged one of the cars off.
Yeah.
And
it was a few weeks ago now. It's hard to remember.
And then the other one, I mean, the guy was basically sideways in the track. Bashing him wouldn't have done anything, and he would have actually hit the guy's driver door, which was a disqualifying move.
Yeah.
So he just stopped, and he waited.
Which is exactly what you want to do in that.
Exactly.
Point in case, he drove his car out.
True sportsmanship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that just, as a person, is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, to see that in a first-time racer, that's awesome.
I believe of the 8 cars, if memory serves me right, from his heat, they towed 2 of them off the track, and then 6 of them drove off. But I believe he was the only one of the 6 that drove off that had 4 tires still and wasn't like smoking profusely.
Something to that effect, yeah.
Like he started overheating, he was steaming, but The air conditioning still works in this car.
That was my final question to you: was does the AC still work? That's all I want to know.
Yeah, it still works in the car.
That is awesome.
The AC still hooked up and works in this stupid car.
Is awesome.
So, you know, I didn't gut that. I mean, maybe I should have for weight because we probably took 1,000 pounds of crap out of that car. But you know,
yeah, leave it in creature comfort.
But I mean, if you look at the car has got So anyways, folks, the top 3 from each heat got to go on to the final A and B.
That was top 4.
It might have been top 4, but so he didn't make it.
Yeah.
We were also rooting on. There was another first timer there that myself and John were rooting on. The guy's name is Donald Raines. He with Bud's Garage, they built a Chevy Cruze. I want to say it was maybe Malibu. It was a Malibu Chevy.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Built a Chevy Malibu, painted it generally orange, 07 on the door. Had a lot of cool things on the car. Donald is a body guy, so he had the prettiest car there. This thing was repainted. You saw it, the orange car.
Yeah.
It was beautiful paint job.
Was
exactly. But he ended up in the final heat. Did not win, but he ended up in the final heat.
Yeah.
That was his first race as well.
Oh, nice.
And he was one of the other guys that was kind of unsure. He's like, oh, man, you know, I hope this goes all, you know. So him and Preston kind of bonded because they were like both brand new racers.
That's awesome.
And the other thing was, as far as I know, they were the only 2 locally sponsored cars.
Oh, wow.
We had the Bud's Garage.
Yeah, there were some far away people.
People came from all over the state.
Lord.
There was Ohio, Indiana. There was people from all over the place.
Yeah.
And
a couple from the UP, if I'm not mistaken, too.
And so, you know, Preston and Donald were the only 2, or Don, they were the only 2 local cars. We had the Bud's Garage car and the Foxfire Fix car, which ironically, Bud's Garage, they've been Dodge people for years. Their yard is half Dodges. I mean,
true story.
Very Chrysler-oriented people.
That's where I got all my neon
racing
injectors back in the day.
Our household here is very much a Ford and Chevy household, and we were running a
we
Dodge.
Won't hold that against you. It's okay.
I know, but we were running a Dodge. Don and I were joking about it, like, why don't we just trade cars, man?
Well, not now. So you figured out your weak points, so you can beef that up for the next one. It survived. It's going on to another race. Oops.
Well,
So
actually,
you're
we didn't find any weak points in that car. Another modification we did, which Preston said it took him a minute to get used to, but he liked it. Mm-hmm. Was we took apart the console, took the shifter, the floor-mounted automatic shifter, and we cut out the detent so he can slap it between drive and reverse without having to push a button or anything.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And I sawzalled out the plastic detents that it had in there.
Nice.
And so he said that was really good because all of a sudden when he needed to back up, he could just go bam and hit the shifter, and and then forward again, just bam, hit it. Didn't have to worry about locking anything.
Yeah.
Only problem he did have, we did disable the button on the rear parking brake because the guy next to it was kind of funny. When we pulled in, the guy that was parked next to us was in the mod class, and he was you could tell this guy, like, he is hashtag Derby life. Okay. Yeah. This guy travels.
The guy that parked to the right of you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Traveled all. He was really standoffish. Mm-hmm. And then he saw I was having all this trouble cutting it, and he kind of comes over and he taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, and he just, without saying a word, hands me this cordless Metabo. Uh-huh. And I'm like, thank you very much. So I'm starting to cut. It didn't work. I'm like, hey, man, I'm sorry it didn't work. And then we get talking for a minute, and he comes over and he goes, is this your first race? And I said, well, I'm not racing. It's my son. And so he looks over my son, and he's like, all right, this is what you're going to want to do. And he starts like giving him all these tips. And he goes, don't let off the gas. When you go around the corners, he goes, use the emergency brake to skid around the corners. And we have the button still, the emergency brake. So he's like, he gave us this basically like Gorilla Tape, but it was better. It was like this rubberized tape.
Nice.
And he's like, just wrap this around the shifter, around the button, so the button's constantly depressed, so you can just pull it. So Preston did try that skidding around the corners, but the one time he did it actually got stuck.
Oh.
Typical hashtag Michigan parking brake.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah. And it got stuck, and his rear wheels were, and that was actually why he probably took fifth, because if you look in the video, he was slowing down on the one, and he says he was jamming it. He finally got it to come out of gear, and the rear brakes freed up, and then he kept going.
Yeah.
So next time we run, we need to make sure those rear parking brakes are working good.
Yeah, I've rebuilt those on a derby car. That is the definition of the phrase pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. Rebuilding drums on a derby car, oh my God. On the plus side, you can use used rotor or drums and not care.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Don't care about anything. But
nope, there's a pile of parts. Guy says, we got these as my neighbor runs a derby car or a bump and run car. And I've helped him work on it a few times, rebuilt the rear end on one side for him. And yeah, it sucked. God, did that suck. But yeah, it's nice to be able to use used parts for something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, we didn't really need to put any parts into the car. Suspension
That
wise,
was a pretty nice looking car.
well, it's a good driver quality car.
Yeah.
We moved the of course.
Put a windshield back, you can still drive it.
You had. I used to joke to Abby. I said to my daughter, I said, "This is gonna be your first car once Preston's done with it," which you still could, honestly. But the
AC works.
you don't have to move the battery to the back seat, but they do.
Yeah.
They say if you do, you have to cover it. This
They're doing
and that.
back seat now with battery?
Well, whatever to the inside of the car. They do recommend it behind the driver.
All right, that's different.
So
I had
all
one
the
point in
derbies have
time-
different rules.
That might be it. At one point in time, and I'd still, if I had the money to build a car, I would love to do figure eight racing someday. But that was, at one point in time, I'd read through the entire rule book for figure eights and the book for demo derbies and knew all the rules at one point in time. I've forgotten most of it.
Well,
and things have changed since then anyway.
There's like 3 sanctioning bodies for racers in Michigan. USA Demo Derbies is one of the bigger ones, and that's the ones that put on this event.
Nice.
And so they said behind the driver, if you're going to do it, blah, blah, blah. You could leave it in the stock location if you wanted to. That would be a really bad idea on a Dodge Stratus because it's in the driver's fender.
Yeah.
Right behind the bumper.
See, what I had always seen was front passenger floor. And then cover it.
Yeah, so we ended up taking it out, and we moved it right behind Preston.
Nice.
Like we did passenger rear floor.
Yeah, that works.
Mounted it back there, and that worked out great. But,
nice.
Like the car drove off the track. There's no, I mean, it's basically got Days of Thunder style road rash up both sides, but the car's straight as an arrow.
That's awesome.
There's no suspension damage. One of the tire, the passenger front outer stuff tire that we did, the outer tire is almost cut all the way through to the second tire. There's a pretty good gouge all the way through it. So I'm really glad we doubled the tires.
Yeah, for sure.
But the car drove onto the trailer, drove it off the track, overheating some. So I don't know if it's got a head gasket issue. Maybe that's why it went to the junkyard. We're going to probably put some of that head gasket in a can repair stuff to it or whatever.
I know you've had good luck with that.
I mean, for stuff like this, who cares,
Yeah.
And, but we ended up putting the car in the museum.
Oh, nice.
We took it down there, display, because it is part of dirt track racing. That's off-road racing. It's two-wheel drive. It's not four-wheel drive, but it's sitting at the museum for the winter. And we figured next season, since the car, we really have to do nothing to it. We can take the car and immediately put it in more events, or at least one more event.
That's awesome.
So, the car survived great, and that's, we just, he, like I said, he didn't get to go on to the finals, but I mean, that's something else though. Well, we had 2 things. We had some compliments, which were nice. So we go through tech inspection at the beginning. And we were one of the first there because I was like, man, if I need to do anything crazy to this car.
Oh, yeah.
Because tech opened at 12. Races started at 4.
Yeah.
And I was like, if they're like,
plenty of time.
Yeah, they're like, if we need you to weld or torch or whatever, I only live 8 miles away. I could drive home and use my tools, I had a lot of tools with me, but just in case,
Yeah.
And so they go through, tell me I got to cut that opening in the bottom, but then, I think it was Jack himself, is the one who came over to me, and he goes, pretty impressive build here. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, you kind of went all out. I'm like, I didn't go all out. And he's like, well, your cage and all that. And I'm like, I read the rules. And he's like, okay. Well, then I saw what he meant, because then the mod cars showed up and a lot of the other cars, and you saw, stuff was held together with duct tape and binder twine and baling wire, and it was like, oh yeah, we kind of went
you
professional.
Went a little fancy.
We went professional with this car.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Again, you drove it off,
and it held up.
Yeah,
the car held up. So,
that's awesome.
But that was kind of funny. And then I had a number of people afterwards that came up and they go, did you say your son drove? And I'm like, yeah, my son drove. And they're like, wow. Like, and how many races? First race. Wow, he did really good. And then I had people compliment me about the fact that he didn't ram the 2.
Yeah, exactly.
I had other people were yelling to ram them, but then other people were like, the racers were like, man, he just stopped right short, sat right there, waited to
Yeah.
clear, and like he just knew what to do.
Exactly.
And
You're going to damage your car. You're going to get stuck, and then you can't keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
He's smart.
so
One hell of a smart
he
kid.
wants to do it again.
Good.
You know, this next summer will be his first summer before going off college.
You know you screwed up with one thing, though, right?
What?
You got him into dirt track racing. You know, the epitome of better this addiction than a drug addiction.
True.
That's what you did.
So we're looking at it. We want to do some local ones. I mean, at this point, we're not really outfitted to drive a couple states over, nor do we really want to.
Yet.
But he had so much fun. It was a great father-son bonding experience.
Absolutely.
You know, we just really enjoyed it.
Now you got to
and
get Abby into this.
She wants to do it next year.
Nice.
We're probably going to build another car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it's a rear-wheel drive or we do just another front-wheel drive car and let brother and sister battle it out together.
The only suggestion I'd make,
Well, actually, they couldn't because she would be in the minor still.
get the same car. One set of spare parts. If you need some, you can borrow it for the other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got to start stocking up on spare parts for 2 different vehicles.
So I got to find another 05 Dodge Stratus.
Or something in that ear brake, yeah.
Yeah, something around there. Maybe.
Yeah.
Of course, the Stratus, Cirrus, 300 are all the same platform. So
300?
I think the 300.
I would love to see a 300 in one of
The
those.
front wheel drive 300s prior to going to the rear wheel drive. So
okay.
that would have been like 03, 04 up to that. I think that's the same.
I remember what my dad's Charger was. That was an 08.
That's rear wheel drive. Yeah. No.
That was a nice car. I miss that car.
But they're just something like that. I know this. Stratus, Cirrus, and I think it is the 300. There's like 3 cars in the same platform, whatever they are.
I know there's a lot of similar ones.
The Dodge Avenger, I think, is a 2-door version of the Stratus.
Yeah.
So one of those would be fine too.
That'd just be cool to see one of those. That's the only thing that I do like. Like I said, I'm not normally a bump and run fan. I've always been a figure 8 guy. But with the newer ones being used in the bump and runs, I do like seeing that. I mean, I love seeing all the old cars beat the crap out of each other in a race. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it is kind of nice to see some newer cars that are kind of in these. And unfortunately, just based on the rules, some of the demo derby and figure 8 stuff is going to be going by the wayside anymore just because the cars are hard to get. I mean, anything that was in the rules for those.
Well, they'll change as they need to.
I hope. I mean, I haven't read the rules in a while, but, last I know of, there were not many of those kind of cars left. And the last, was it at Armada, not this year, last year? No, the year before that. There was only a couple heats of figure 8 cars. All the rest was bump and run that year.
Well, I guess it depends on the particular event promoter, but I know that at one point, the one at Richmond, because I did look into that a few years ago, had to be specifically an American-made, full frame, body on frame, sedan, rear-wheel drive. No station wagon, no van, no pickup truck. So it had to be a sedan.
No station wagons?
They did not used to allow station wagons. Some do, but they did not.
Was that a derby or figure 8 though?
I don't remember. I think it was derby.
Okay.
It might have been figure 8.
I have a friend of our family's used to run figure 8 races before his kids came around, and it was pretty cool. He was telling me this story. So his oldest daughter, when she was being born. He didn't know about it. He was in a race. He'd been racing for many, many years. Figure 8. I believe it was a 64 station wagon is what he used to run. And the night he won his first race, got the trophy, and this predates cell phones, somebody had finally found him at the event he was at to tell him, your wife's in labor.
Oh, geez.
He kind of dropped everything and went. And that was the night his daughter was born. I don't remember if he made it in time or was just after. But that is like one of her prize things and kind of their stories is his first place trophy the night she was born.
Did he drive the derby car to the hospital?
No.
So, I mean, I'm not trying to one-up you here, but one of my high school friends, his older brother, so his mom and dad, their first kid, he was working somewhere, and he lived right by where he worked. I don't know the full story of what it was, but he was out of town. He was 3 hours away.
Oh, wow.
And his wife was up north, I want to say by like Gaylord or Grayling, something
Okay.
like that. And he was down here. Like, they lived down here. I think his wife was up visiting. She
Gotcha.
went into premature labor or something like that. Like, a month ahead or maybe 3 weeks ahead. She didn't think she was going to have the baby right.
Yeah.
So she was up visiting some family. He was working. He had driven to work that day his race car.
Nice.
He had a Pro Stock Chevy Nova,
Ooh.
1970, 454, race fuel only, 4-speed Muncie, 12-volt rear end with like 456 gears, slicks on the back.
Dude.
But he was trying to do some tuning on the car. He
Yeah.
only worked like a mile or two from where they lived, so he drove the car to work. He was just trying to work some bugs out of the car. The car was technically street legal, even though it wasn't street. It had full cage, all this and that.
Yeah.
And he would tell the story to me. That's why I'm kind of regurgitating the story, but he told the story multiple times over the years. So this is the same thing. Predates cell phones. This would have been probably 75, 74.
Okay.
So the car's only a couple years old,
Yeah.
but it's a full-on Pro Stock drag car. He's working, gets a call. Hey, wife's in labor. We're at hospital so-and-so. He's like 3 hours away. He gets into the drag car and drove it there full speed all the way up I-75.
Dang.
Doing like 130, 140 miles an hour. Just screaming in this Nova. No overdrive back then. You know, this car is meant for the quarter mile.
Yeah.
Drove all the way up there. Got up there in like an hour and a half. Ran into the hospital. Literally ran into the delivery room as she popped out the kid.
Wow.
Was there for the birth of the kid.
Barely.
They do all the thing. Blah, blah, blah. Get everything all taken care of. Kid's fine. He goes out to the car like the next day. Click, click, click. Seized right up. He says when they finally pulled the engine out of that car, they drove his wife's car back, whatever. They pulled the engine out of that car. He said the pistons were essentially, they had to hammer them out with wooden blocks. They were melted to the block. He had that thing running so hot the whole way. He basically, I mean, the car is built for quarter mile, and he just drove it like 200 miles, 300 miles, you know, just ran that thing to the red line the whole way.
I thought you were going to say, like, what is the
I think he said a tunnel ram, dual quads on it, all that, yeah.
Jeez. I thought you were going to say something like in Grand Theft Auto. You walk outside and there's like cops everywhere around the car. And
he says he's kind of a semi-religious guy, and that was one of the things. He goes, well, God was looking down that day. He goes, I didn't pass a single cop the entire way.
Wow. Or if he did, like, nope, not worth it.
Yeah, you're sitting there almost in the 70 Nova just goes, pew! Okay, not even
What
messing
was
with
that? This is some good coffee. Huh. That's awesome.
But anyways, man, you know, I just really had a lot of fun at that event. And, I know you did too. I appreciate
that
you
was
staying
awesome.
the whole time. Too.
Yeah, we worked on winterizing the boat that day. It was only supposed to take us half an hour. 2.5 hours later, we finally managed to get the engine to actually start. We had issues with one of them, and we'll probably get into a little bit more of that the next episode.
Sure.
But it was one of those, when we're working on that, phone, watch, anything that doesn't need to be on me goes in a separate corner just because we're getting into tight spots and don't want to get caught up on something. But we finally got it done, and I'm looking at the clock and it's like, oh crap, I'm gonna be late. And I was I got there, couldn't find a parking space. I had to park probably 10 almost 15-minute walk away, I think it was. And then walked around. I got to where I thought I could go in. Like, no, this fence goes all the way around. This is private property for this apartment building. Are you kidding me? So
You got to walk through the middle of it. I know where you're at, but yeah.
Yeah, I had to walk all the way around. Finally get in there. And I thought, I was nervous I was going to miss it because I was trying to find you and meet up with you. And then you were busy, couldn't get a hold of you. So I just walked in.
Yeah.
I paid, of course, first. I mean, you gotta do that. Finally found a spot. Actually ran into some buddies I know. My buddy Curtis, Macomb County Sheriff, and some other people. And like, oh, no, it hasn't even started yet. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Like, they were loading the first heat. So I was afraid I missed it.
They were a little behind time, yeah.
Yeah, that works out. And then shout out to, if I'm saying this right, CJ at Vintrest.
Vintrest Garage, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't recognize him at first. I'm standing there talking to a buddy of mine, and then Brett came out. Excuse me. I'll tell you about why that's happening next episode, too. So, yeah. So Brett came out, and I'm talking to him, and I kept hearing somebody calling my name. And I'd turn around, and I'd look at the beer tent. You know, what the little fenced-in area by the beer tent there? Like, who the hell is calling me? So I mentioned to Brett, because it happened a second time.
Yeah.
And I look, and I couldn't find him. And I says, somebody keeps calling my name over there. I don't know who it is. He goes, it's probably not you. There's a lot of Johns here. He says, no, he's calling me Johnny Orange. I'm pretty sure it's me.
Okay, yeah.
And then I heard it again, turned around, and he was gone. A few minutes later, he walked right up to me, said his name is like, that's it. You were driving the... I kept looking right at him, and it just didn't register in my head.
Hey, you know, a lot of people, but...
So we sat there, and we all watched the race together in that little area and talked for a while, and that was awesome. So shout out to you, man. You really screwed with me for a while there. That was awesome. That was funny.
I really appreciate CJ and Jen, his wife Jen coming out. And actually, that was one of the things, too. Preston had, between you and me and our various friends and family and his various friends and family... my ex-wife Katie, my girlfriend Angie. I mean, there was so many people that came out to support him.
Yeah.
Bob and Melissa, Jason and Amber, and Preston's girlfriend Azalea, and I mean, just so many people. He had 15 or 20 people rooting for him there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And you know, it was great. It was really, really a good support system of people there. So
that's awesome. Everybody came out and got along.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time my ex-wife and I said, Angie actually, she's like, well, now you've abandoned me with your ex-fiance and your ex-wife. But then she got back at me by, quote-unquote, losing her keys.
Oh, yeah. Did she ever find them?
Oh, yeah, they were in her purse.
In the car?
No, on her person.
That's awesome.
So, girlfriend, you know, her CRV, her Honda CRV, which we've talked about a few episodes ago. We go to walk back to her car. She's like, oh my God, I don't have my keys. We go back. The event's winding down. The demo derby was over, but they had some music playing and stuff. I'm climbing all underneath these bleachers. There is no vomit, thankfully, but there's spilled everything.
Oh,
There's things that I don't even want to know what they were.
Probably not.
Yeah, all sorts of things.
Take a long hot shower with a gallon of bleach.
Yeah, under those bleachers. I'm going all over the place, and I don't find these keys anywhere. Looking all over. We end up doing Facebook posts. We end up doing
I saw
friends,
that, yeah.
this and that. We go through this whole rigmarole. She fortunately acted pretty cool the whole time. She's like, yep. She's like, no, it's fine. I have a spare key at home, blah, blah. Drive her all the way, tow the derby car on the trailer all the way, 3 towns over, because she lives 3 towns over from where we were. So I drive, 30 minutes north, get her key, come back with her spare key, fires at the car, drive home, all this and that. Only for the next day for her daughter to go, well, why didn't you just activate your tile? And she's like, my what? And she goes, I gave you that thing on your keychain.
So she has one.
So she hit the tile GPS on her keys, and it kept pinging somewhere in Port Huron. So she drives to Port Huron, next town north where she lives.
Yeah.
And she's sitting outside, and it keeps pinging, and she's about to go knock on this address, and it just keeps pinging. And her daughter, she's like, well, it's saying it's within 15 feet of me. She goes, it'd have to be on their lawn or whatever. And she's like, well, they're not always the most accurate, blah, 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 this and that. And then she remembered that she has a, hidden smuggler's compartment in her purse that she had zipped her keys in so they wouldn't fall out of her purse. So
that is awesome.
She'd already called the Honda dealership, and they said it was going to be almost $300 to replace the keys. So, she was pretty happy that she had the keys.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
But and she had all of her school keys for getting in and out of.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just well, whatever.
That is awesome.
I do want to mention one final thing about Elginak's first bump and run, which was kind of amazing where they had it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small field in Elginak, and when I say field, it's not even a field. It's off of the elementary school that I went to.
I thought that was the school. Wait, you went there?
I went to Elginak Elementary.
Oh, nice.
It's been closed down for years, but the school's sitting abandoned.
That's good to know for other
But
reasons.
the little field off the back of it, which seems like it's part of the school, was donated like 150 years ago by some lady to the city of Elginak, with the provision that it could be for the use of any event, blah blah blah, whatever, for the people of the city of Elginak. But if any permanent structure was ever built on the property, they had to sell it and give the money back to the family.
Oh wow!
So Elginak has all sorts of things there. We have our big carnival there. We have everything, but it's a pretty small field. It's not really like, I mean, when I say field, we're talking less than 2 acres.
Yeah,
I don't even know if it's that. Behind the Dairy Queen, like downtown, between low-income housing and the senior citizen complex and a couple of churches.
Yeah.
And they had a full-on bump and run with 80-something cars there.
Yeah, that was impressive.
And they said like 3,000 people.
Oof.
Like,
wow.
I couldn't believe we all fit down there.
Was that 3,000 total throughout the event or that night?
That night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, that was illegal what I did then.
Whatever.
We'll talk about that off the air.
Whatever. So, I mean, indecent exposure is indecent exposure no matter what you do. But
no, it was not that. Trust me.
But anyways,
it's such a good joke to make right now, and I can't.
I was like, when they said it was behind the Dairy Queen in Elginak, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be in the field by the old elementary school. And I'm like, what? I'm like, there's not enough room for that. They made enough room.
That was impressive.
I mean, there was no parking.
That. No.
People were parking all over town.
Yeah, I was parked over by, was it Anytime Fitness, I think?
Yeah.
Over there? Yeah.
You and Angie parked by each other pretty much.
Yeah, which is funny because I thought she was somewhere else, and so I walked, and you guys drove, and I could have just gotten a ride, and I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was parked
By
in the
the way,
pits.
that energy drink you gave me that night was terrible.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God, I don't know why I finished it.
So, sponsor of the event apparently it wasn't Monster. What was
Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah.
And they had cases and cases and cases and cases of energy drinks. And
I didn't know that.
And yeah, they were just like, take as many as you want in the pits.
I didn't know that.
And so I grabbed one of the white zero.
Those ones are good.
Yeah, it was delicious.
Yeah, that's what I've been drinking a lot of. I normally drink Monster.
Yeah.
Drinking a lot of Rockstar right now because there's codes on the tab.
Oh.
For his really, really nice Halo Edition Jeep Gladiator.
I thought you said you quit those, but whatever.
That was a long time ago. I've been back on them for over a year.
Yeah, crack is crack. So
pretty much, but I'm drinking no sugar. That one you gave me was the first sugar one I've had in a long time.
That was Preston cracked it open, took a sip of it, and he was like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah, that one's terrible. I don't know how that. No, the white sugar-free, the fruit punch one is still my all-time favorite of those.
Okay, all right.
The goji blueberry is weird, but it's really good.
Oh yeah,
it's different.
So we're not saying that Rockstar is a great drink or a terrible drink. I mean, some of them are pretty good.
Some of them I like a lot. Yeah.
But whatever,
the 240 milligrams of caffeine really works.
Yeah, well, whatever that one, I don't remember what the flavor was.
It was original.
It was
with sugar.
It was something else.
No, it was original.
It was a brown can.
Yeah, brown and black.
Oh,
That's,
all right.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Or gold and black.
That's gross.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rockstar. It was gross. I mean, we've said that before on the show. We're going to be honest about everything.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, I'm not an energy drink guy, and I was looking to buy a couple.
Limit to one a day at least.
I was trying to buy a cup of coffee somewhere. There wasn't any, and they were like, "Here, free energy drink." I'm like, "Yeah, fine. Caffeine's caffeine." Yeah.
No.
I can feel my heartbeat in my head, but
see, I don't get that. I don't really get the blood pressure thing from it. It just kind of. I mean, it works over time.
I'll just mix it with all my other meds, so
Oh yeah, I mean, you get that.
And probably the 6 other cups of coffee I had that day.
All right. Well, okay, and it was the energy drink that did it. You gave me like half a can. You didn't have that much.
Yeah. Well, anyways, buddy, it was a fantastic event. Thank you so much for coming.
No worries. Sorry I was a little bit late.
You're good.
Still made it for the good part.
Yeah. So, folks, go to if you want to see more photos and video and pictures of the event, go to our Facebook page on Wheelin'. I cross-posted a lot of stuff, some of the build stuff. You can also go to my personal Facebook page, and there are some public posts, Keith Codet, Kodet, and you can see some, I think, the full race there. Don't go friend request to me, because if I don't know you, I'm not going to accept it. I'm just like
Well,
that.
you need a public page like me.
That's why you just need to like
Except half of my
and
posts are
share
stuff
stuff on Wheelin'.
Yeah.
And like always, if you are interested in, well, now seeing the Derby car for a few months,
Yeah.
come on down Thursdays between 6 and 8:30 p.m. to the Museum of Off-Road Adventure in Clay Township, Michigan. It's themora.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as the Museum of Off-Road Adventure. We also have, in the front half of the museum, where a space we're going to be taking over in the near future, there is a massive Christmas collectible sale going on.
And it's going into that season.
And it is going into that season. So if you're interested in Christmas stuff, that's a great excuse also to be able to, so I'm going to be a little sexist here. Guys who want to come see the museum, bring your wife to shop at the Christmas thing.
Or girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other, whatever.
I'm going to do it the other way. Girls who want to come see the museum, bring your boyfriend to come shop at the, Christmas event,
See, I would approach that differently. If you want to have a couple's night out, you want to do some shopping, of course. I mean, a lot of girls like to shop, right?
Sure.
Christmas season, going into the holiday, you want to be festive. Dump him in the museum and go shop.
There you go. That
You don't
works.
have him bugging you or anything.
There you go. You got a little bit of both worlds every Thursday night and by appointment. There are some Saturday and Sunday coming up soon. You can look online. You'll find it. Whatever.
There's a lot of cool stuff there, and the quicker that stuff goes, the quicker we get to expand.
Yeah. And John, how else can they get hold of us? Or
So Facebook.com, just look up 4x4 Talk on there. A couple quick questions get you on the page. You can interact with us, interact with all the other listeners. If you've got questions on a build, need opinions, input, suggestions, recommendations, or just check out pictures of what other people are doing. I'll have an update in a little bit here on Project XJ that'll be going up there. So stay tuned for that. We are also on Patreon. We do have the after show there, patreon.com/WheelinRadio. Access as low as $2 a month. And pretty quickly here, we are going to be having a Podbean premium service available. So it'll be a one-time cost. We'll get you access to all of our past episodes and all the future episodes.
love it.
So check that out. I'm in process of getting the rest of the files. I'm going to start processing those and get them up and go from there. So I don't know. I don't think we have anything else right now, do we? No.
We're good, man.
Thanks for listening and have a good one, everybody.